If you like smooth jazz, smooth cheese, and even smoother gunplay, have I got the game for you. Mouse PI for Hire caught my attention as soon as it was doing the rounds back in the day. A 1930s Mickey Mouse aesthetic shooter, and I get a Tommy and Lewis gun? Now I thought that is very cool. And then as things do, time goes by, years even, and out of nowhere, the game, in the back of my mind, slowly but surely gets closer to release. And from about that point in Mouse's life, when it showed real promise and a strong likelihood that it would in fact come out, I was just plain excited about it. The wacky 1930s world, the noir detective vibes, and the guns look very cool and very stylized. So you can believe me when I say I'm excited to see if Mouse PI for Hire is as fun as it looks. The game opens with a case just like any other. Our hero Jack Pepper on his quest to clean up Mouseburg one crook at a time, and voicing our leading mouse is none other than Troy Baker. His gruff detective voice is amazing and gives Jack Pepper so much charm.
She was tight-lipped, meat on sight, details later. Had to be someone big, recognizable. The kind that only says oops when they remember they're mortal too.
But with our introductions out of the way, it's tutorial time. All your standard stuff, crouching, moving, shooting, and a very Dead Space-esque quest guide which amounts to a detective brush pointing the way to your next objective, making going off the beaten path that much easier. Now, keeping with the unique mechanics in this tutorial is the game's unlocking mechanic. Jack weaves and winds his tail through any and all locked chambers to unlock the tumbler at the end, with certain safes being timed or full of traps. That Jack is an industrious one. But anyways, as this is a shooter, our first weapon on this journey is the fabled Meiser, based on the iconic broom-handled Mauser. It's a very period-appropriate pistol, with a ton of fun little animations for moving and shooting with it. Therefore, after introductions and armaments alike, it's time to clean up the streets, and we awaken later with a lead on a new case. But as every good detective needs is a buddy, in the press we meet Wanda, Jack's friend from the Mouseburg Herald. They have a history of working together through tough cases, and today, like any other day, Wanda has a lead. A lead that just maybe might spell trouble, but after all, trouble is what Jack Pepper does.
You know, I figured it might interest you. Goes by the name Magnificent Bandle, or whatever.
Bandle? As in Steve Bandle?
One and the same. You know him?
You could say that. All right, I'm going in.
But once we're finally out on the mean streets, we meet Wanda in an alley in Mouseburg. She has a pass for us to get into the building and investigate the mysterious disappearance of a magician. But getting into the building is worth mentioning. As funny as it is, Jack, very poorly mind you, impersonates Wanda to get past the lieutenant in maybe the worst voice I've ever heard. So cheesy, but I can't help but smile.
No entry without an ID.
Looking... Oh, you...
Now therefore, after making entry, it's crime solving time. Checking the scene for any clues, from photos to physical evidence, and saving them for later. But the goodness doesn't stop there, as we also get some good boomer shooter staples. To the brush and guidance mechanic I mentioned earlier, but there are plenty of secrets hidden throughout, ranging from cash to ammo and other mysterious goodies. But upon thoroughly searching the premises, the magician has definitely vanished, and mid-show mind you. Now that is suspicious. With that news, it's off to find his assistant. Anyways, after we're finished with that crime scene, it's off to a very cool overworld map. You drive Jack's car around Mouseburg and load into each mission like a level, while still being somewhat free in what you do and when. Therefore, upon finding where we need to be, it's one of my favorite tropes in this kind of shooters, shootouts and train tunnels. They're just so vibey. The edge and the grime of the tunnels is just its own thing. But after that little excursion, we finally find the magician's assistant in pieces about the magician's disappearance. But no good lead goes without a few new mechanics. Some conversations throughout Mouse PI have dialogue choices, which really help to flesh out the world and the dramas that Jack is facing. Steve the magician has shady ties to the very same shady group that Mildred Sawyer is involved in, Big Mouse Politics, and also a mention about her suspicions with the stage designer. With another successful mission in tow, it's back to Jack's office to pin his clues on his board, to help bring the bigger picture of the whole case into focus, and get the scoop from Wanda about what she knows about this mysterious stage designer.
Roland?
Roland who?
Roland the stage designer. Nobody ever remembers his name, so they just call him the stage designer. Quite the specialist. He can make anything, from tiny shrew-sized dioramas to huge catapults hurling limelights all over the stage.
With Wanda giving us the download on the designer, it's off to the opera to see what we can shake loose. But also, to tie into the conversation mechanics from earlier, I find a random waiter that smuggles me where I need to go for $30 redos. Sneaking through the opera's backstage, we find that the designer is in a bit of a bind, letting us in on a little secret. Those punk new extras that he hired aren't the extras, but all mobsters. Can't a mouse catch a break? But the shocks don't stop there. Those pesky mobsters are trying to assassinate a local mayoral candidate by shooting a massive cannon stage thing right at him, which is definitely something. A shootout here and a shootout there, and we come to a surprise of sorts with a boomstick, your classic pump action shotgun, great for close encounters. But with great power comes great shootouts. Now after getting that very same shotgun, we get ourselves into a great little fight outside the opera house as we need to break into the second floor. I should probably talk about combat now. It's fast, it's frantic. You've got a dodge mechanic handy for getting in and out of sticky situations, from enemy shots to fire and other environmental hazards. Sparks and much more, but also with plenty of red barrels and all the boomer shooter staples to give your arsenal that extra pop. But once inside, we get treated to a few good ambushes, falling through the floors and such. But almost at once we get our hands on a new tool for this journey, the dynamite. Is that a blood reference? Anyways, our journey through the classical halls of the opera ends with a boss fight. The boss fights are very cinematic and all-encompassing. Now you have a health bar and a moveset like any good boss fight does, but the shotgun is your friend here, making short work of the queen of the stage.
God, jeez, take it down a notch.
But from a fight to remember to a building to forget, the place goes up in flames, and sprinting desperately through the quickly collapsing building, we're saved by the very same stage design from earlier. Now therefore, after making it back to the office, we find out the would-be assassin target is a mouse by the name of Cornelius Stanton, a friend of Jack's. Your average local politician type, cigar-chomping, suit-wearing figure that is as comfortable in the underbelly of Mouseburg as he is at his very top. But with that chit-chat aside, and next up on this adventure is the lab belonging to the magician. Upon making close to the lab, we see the magician's residence, and I gotta say, the place definitely looks evil. I really do hope there are no zombies about with barking dogs and a real oppressive atmosphere leading up to the estate. With a new area to sift through, we get some new enemies, cultist mice, with plenty of Tommy guns, shotguns, and all around a real nuisance. But it is time to clash with them, and clash with them we do, in a bunch of underground tunnels and very spooky catacombs, inching ever closer to the mansion and the lab. But from the weird to just plain broken, we get my favourite weapon in the game up to this point, the De-Varnisher. A semi-auto acid-spewing weapon that has a ray gun cartoon aesthetic and does crazy damage over time. To whatever is unlucky enough to be de-varnished by yours truly. But no good boomer shooter goes without power-ups, and the first of many on Jack's adventure is Pepper D. Downing a California Reaper chili, Pepper Jack goes into a fiery rage of sorts, and does constant fire damage as he bounces around with a shotgun and De-Varnisher, turning all the mobster mice into just suggestions. Therefore, after some chaos and carnage, it's once again boss fight time, with the whatchamacallit, a ghastly creation of Steve Bandel, our mysterious magician. He was just a little obsessed with his assistant, so he's made 3 mechanical variations of her. And the first version is a laser-spewing half-humanoid robot, backed up by a pretty devastating death ray. But our old friend Circle Strafing once again wins out. But after that first round of mechanical mastery and malignance, we meet Igor, Bandel's personal servant, as he fills us in on some clues. Mostly just ramblings and other random little tidbits. But once that's out of the way, it's on to Betty V2. A slightly more humanoid robot, but this time around, the fight is melee focused. And I mean V2 Betty is on your ass, man. Jumping, leaping, quick and frantic attacks. But once again, the De-Varnisher is your friend here. Just seeing that damage stack after each burst of shots is so damn satisfying.
Mine's already gone, sweetheart.
But after a few good boss fights, it's time to deal with some lesser bots and fix the lab's power problem. jumping over electrified water, or getting into the back and forth with Bandale's minions. Now therefore, after getting the power back on, and the way to the deepest parts of the lab laid bare, it's time for the championship round. This time it's Betty's final form. Now final form Betty is a mix of the last two versions. He has some crazy melee and jumping attacks combined with a death ray and lasers. A real tough fight, I'm not gonna lie. You need to keep moving, deal with her bomber bodies she sends your way, and also not letting yourself get vaporized by that death ray. Thankfully, after a death or two, I managed to take advantage of the large arena and properly learn her patterns and send Robot Betty to the scrap heap. But after Jack successfully sends Bandale's little creation onto the next life, we get a new lead. A scientist named Von Herzer and a plan. But after leaving the lab forever changed, it's back to the office. But we're in for a little stop along the way. It's time to see Tammy Tumbler, an acquaintance of Jack, a fix-it-all grease monkey that enjoys calling Jack old and giving his weapons a higher power level. And Cornelius, the politician that he is worried about some shrews, smaller sized mice, that are going missing, and he sends you to investigate.
There's another issue I wanted to talk to you about. See, the shoes.
Hell, Cornelius, not you too.
It's not like that, Jack. I'm simply concerned for our little brothers.
Could it be police corruption or something much more sinister? But immediately upon arriving at the shrew town, it's time to shoot it out with the police and a new enemy, the Bruiser. A large tanky enemy that will book it for you and do melee damage, so don't be shy with those dodges. Now upon heading to the police station for clues, we come across shrews being beaten and dragged away, amidst the neighborhoods littered with police and poor shrews. But from atmosphere to atmospherically powerful, we come across a very Doom-inspired Berserker power-up. Taking a page from both Doom and Popeye the Sailor Man, Jack eats some spinach and becomes a beast of a brawler as he gives those pesky coppers a what for, I tell ya. Therefore, after cleaning up on the court, we are treated to some great ambience with some very New York of old inspired apartment buildings on our way to the police station. But upon triumphantly making it to the police station, things take an unexpected twist. We emerge into the cells and now need to do some math to set ourselves free. Get it wrong and it's time to scrap with some less than friendly coppers. Now therefore, after clearing the way forward and fighting our way through the police station, we get a cheeky little Resident Evil reference with a little Welcome Leon sign. But no welcome is complete without firepower. Folks, may I present the Tommy gun, the Chicago typewriter itself. Fun to use with its high capacity, but if you spray, you're gonna need to pray because that accuracy isn't great unupgraded. With a bang and a boom, all our roads point to the subway and the horrors of what lies beneath. But with every good subway level demands an appropriately awesome entrance, and I think of no better entrance than introducing our Tommy gun to those pesky goons. Therefore, after clearing the subway, it's onto the sewers. And the boomstick and the Tommy gun are golden here. High damage and high capacity are fantastic with the stop and pop combat of the sewers, but these aren't any regular sewers. Underneath the station is a whole mess of squatters and mice living down there. Now just what are these police and shrews up to? But the sewers are no slouches in the ambush department. Plenty of snipers and melee enemies keeping you on your toes. But the style doesn't stop there. The boss fight for the sewers is a Metal Gear Solid reference. We find an overgrown gator with a minigun. We fight in between some containers. Very Vulcan Raven. Now, this gator is very deadly at range and can be circle strafed. In fact, don't even try to 1v1 him, he'll shred you like a bag of cheese at 2 AM.
Now hold still, will you?
Ruining a hard-working father's day, we unlock the tail glide ability. The sewers from here on out are a mix of tail-based platforming and some fast and frantic gunfights, with an emphasis on the fights. But after gliding and shooting and dashing, we finally manage to track down the cheese-legger boss and he spills the beans. They aren't the masterminds of the whole scheme, but they're the middlemen trying to get their people a better life. Maybe any path out that requires trafficking might come back to haunt you one day. But anyways, After laying the squares on the boss, it's back to the office to pin more clues and get more evidence and meet Vivian McCarthy, who has a job for us. A friend of hers was murdered on Tinsel Avenue, so it's our job to find out who it is and why. But with cheese in hand and a fresh clip for the Tommy gun, it's off to the set-piece streets of Tinseltown. Streets with a blend of clearly a set, mixed in with various production studios and the like. Now, I really like this whole chapter. Street cleaning movie sets that feel quintessentially 1930s. But from the streets to the tomb, we come across this mouse, Rocky Ford, who needs Jack's help in shooting a scene for him. What scene, might you ask? A fun little reference to the first Indiana Jones having Jack replace an idol and swing from point to point to avoid this big boulder that wants to turn Jack into a pancake. Now therefore, after the streets and jungles that have been brought to justice, while making our way through the medieval set, we find evidence that Betty has been seen with another mayoral candidate from the BNP. Yeah, the bad mice. The evidence we find on this particular candidate points us to one Miles Curd, assistant to the aforementioned politician. One hell of a shrewd character with something clearly to hide.
Mr. Curd, I'm investigating the unfortunate demise of one Betty Lynch. I have reason to believe your boss, mayoral candidate Milford Sawyer, knew her. Might even be useful in figuring out how she ended up dead.
And who the hell are you? I don't remember seeing you around the MPD headquarters, and I know all our good investigators.
The back and forth threatening remarks are that of an innocent mouse, I'm sure. But after that little excursion, it's onto the bay, and what a bay it is. But upon landing, we continue Mouse PR's strong tradition with fun power-ups with a cup of coffee. And when you know, Jack's fingers are just like that Cuphead fella, blasting away with a limited invulnerability. It's just a fun time. Therefore, after Jack and his coffee, it's onto the surrounding towns to track down the police captain, the leader of these corrupt mice. But upon finding him, it's no ordinary boss fight, it is in fact a set-piece fight. This battle gives us this game's rocket launcher in terms of a shoulder-mounted ship cannon. Very cool. But in order to stop the captain, you need to blast away certain chunks of the apartment building he's in, all while his lackeys try and stop you. But with all this mess, it's worth it as the cannon is a blast to use and makes crowds into an afterthought. But after leveling a square city block, we find a local, let's say, character in Cameron Bozo, who we bribe into letting us know that there are suspected larger players in this game. Between the shrews themselves, crooked cops, and a mention of the mysterious scientists from earlier. Now therefore, after heading through more of the town, searching for clues, we're treated to hordes of enemies and more Pepper D fights. Jumping, ducking, diving and dodging the hordes of less than happy coppers that you've killed half of their mates and really ruined their whole showdown at the docks. But after narrowly avoiding getting our tail singed off by all the Pepper D we take while clearing the docks, we catch a glimpse of the two mysterious villains, a legendary police captain and the scientist everyone keeps talking about.
No fondue way. Captain is Captain Goddamn Sims.
Now therefore, after getting the docks all taken care of, it's onto the wetlands. The cheeseleggers, having outlived their usefulness, are getting hunted by the corrupt cops for their troubles. But the cheeseleggers aren't entirely screwed. They're hiding out in their bayou-esque swamp, so it's up to us, like any good going out of business sale, to close business ourselves. But the bayou and surrounding caves hide a fun little secret. I don't know whether it's a Mario reference or just because everyone's mice and will probably fit, but you can now use small pipes to get around the environment Mario style. But against the pressure from the police, the cheeseleggers don't last long. So before long, those cultist mice from earlier are back with a vengeance. That all culminates with a boss fight against one ugly mouse, a large, overgrown cultist that once again gets melted by the Devanisher. But thankfully, the distraction in dealing with the supposed boss of the cultists, we still manage to get the boss of the cheeseleggers before the police find him. Seeing that his hours are numbered, spills the beans about some mysterious faction. But just like that, the police are here and now a Scots mouse. This mouse hurls taunts at you while circling you in his riverboat throwing explosives.
Say your prayers, Sleuth! I'm coming for you! Now where do you think you're going, Jackie boy?
Oh, come on.
So best put that dodging skill to the test and stay on all the platforms, because unlike a GTA protagonist, Jack can swim, but this isn't water you want to swim in. Most water in the game does some level of damage, so it is best to avoid it. Jack escapes the hellish landscape of the bayou in a plane, and now we're on to Curdsville. Kurdsville is another great level on the atmosphere front. We emerge into the area surrounding the Kurd mansion, and it's a mess of spooky swamps and not very nice looking vistas. Very cool. But after fighting through several graveyards, we've come to the mansion and meet its caretaker, aptly named Caretaker, who won't let us in. So now how do we get in? Just in the nick of time, and in a very fortunate way, a nice old shrew appears from thin air to offer us guidance. Now the caretaker is a big fan of marriage, but not ones that last. So it's backtracking time through the graveyards to get the rings of his 3 wives who all had mysterious accidents. Now the first wife is just a simple walk and talk to her, hand over the ring. Now the second wife requires some light platforming. Where this gets interesting is the third and final wife wants revenge the most, and thus she isn't ready to let go of her ring so easily.
Thief! Oathbreaker! There's no takesies backsies in marriage, husband!
I'm not him.
So you'll be ready for a boss fight. But your weapons don't work here, as she is a ghost, so your only trusty torch can do any real damage. So you have to balance your normal guns to deal with her skeleton-based and cultist minions, then save your flashlight just for her, as we emerge in time to see the spirits of his wives taunting him into fleeing the area. And therefore, after the happy reunion, we find Miles Kurd's illegitimate daughter and find out that Miles is dead. Things really are heating up. But with that, it's off to the depths, and yet another surprise is in the depths we find an entire shrew city. A small little space that the shrews have carved out for themselves. But that mysterious voodoo shrew is back from earlier and needs us to fix the pipes for Shrew Thicket. As you can probably guess, some of those pesky thugs are involved. So it's time to collect all the necessary parts. For the first valve, it's near the broken pump itself. The water, now ever filling the room, is a battle against the water and the enemies. Push up the tower with the water whether you like it or not. But like any good tower, once it's been climbed and conquered, it's onto the second valve. Now unlike the first one, this isn't so simple. After searching around for the second jack, get shoved into a boxing ring to fight for the valve. A spectacle under the bright lights. Fighting wave after wave of melee enemies, brought to you once again by the power of spinach. Now therefore, after Jack wins the love of the crowd with his victory over the mobbed masses, we get the second valve and it's back to the now flooded water pump chamber to make a risky swim to the bottom and get that pressure under control. But after swimming for our lives and having our enemies fight for theirs, Jack gets a new lead. Some fancy show in town called the Manja Manja is happening, and that's where he needs to be. But one small problem with this part of the show involves clowns, and our boy Jackie hates clowns, so this should be interesting. But upon making it to the showground, those pesky coppers from earlier, the ones still standing after Jackie boy cleans house, are blocking their way into the show, so it's sneaking time. Now therefore, after a thorough search of the surrounding building, we finally managed to find a way in. But what did we find once inside? Kurd's murder scene, and a very Italian show manager that is kind enough to give us a lead.
You one of them coppers, huh? Interrogate, I see?
Yeah, something like that. So tell me, what the hell happened here?
Can you see her? Francesco de Elefanto, he killed Mr. Kurda. Oh, madre di topo, what a disaster!
But the show doesn't stop with information. It's new ability time, folks. Some more running is now in Jackie's book of skills, using this newfound talent to reach a cheese-addicted elephant working at the show. And Jackie squeezes him for information. Now apparently, this elephant just wanted regular cheese, but his dealer sold him the dreaded blue cheese, which caused the accident with the elephant. But the elephant also thinks that the perp is still hiding somewhere in the audience, so it's probably smart to start checking out the place to see what can be found. Now therefore, after searching over every inch of the place, we get confronted by a very mysterious hitman, who is a clear Phantom of the Opera fan. This mouse is tough. He's basically one shot and then teleport attacks make him hard to hit. But in a smart move, I fully upgraded the Devanisher by this point and it completely melts him. But this isn't the end for our marked hitmouse. He hints at deeper connections and flees into the knight's embrace. But from a show to a cruise. Next stop on the hunt to clear Mouseburg takes him to an exclusive boat party where all the bigwigs of the Big Mouse Party are meeting for all your standard world-controlling meeting activities. After securing an invite, we get aboard this very vessel and it's chock full of not very friendly mice looking at their attire. You You can probably guess who they're supposed to be. But moving on, Jack needs to find the big cheese in this whole show, so infiltrating their party at the front of the ship, we find none other than the legendary mouse cop, Captain Sims, leading the whole show. But Jackie's camera flashes, alerts Sims, and it's fight for your lifetime.
You've made a mess I'll be cleaning up for weeks. That won't do.
Damn right it won't, because your little trafficking side hustle ends here, Captain. I'm burning it all down.
Ha! Good thing we're moored on the river. Now, die!
He disappears for a while and comes back with a biplane to make our lives living hell. But how do we shoot him down, he say? Well, viewer, I have the solution for you. He has conveniently placed AA guns on the front of his boat. Sims is constantly bombarding you while you get flanked by his goons. Keeps you sharp and moving for sure. Now thankfully, I barely make it through and shoot him down. But that Sims can't go quietly as he crashes into the boat and sets it alight. So Jackie now needs to flee the burning wreck. But I'm going to have to end the fun there. So far, I think Mouse PI Fire is amazing. What do you think? See you for part 2. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have yourself a good one, and I'll see you next time.
I live again.